We'll get started. The first question I wanted to ask is, what inspired you to become a researcher, a scientist, a cognitive computing specialist? Was there a moment that you knew this is what you wanted to do?
There wasn't a particular moment, but as far as I can remember, I used to be an observer. I would observe objects and people and the way things work and why people do the things they do. So I used to think and analyze things a lot when I was young. But that was kind of multiplied by the fact that I used to read a lot. But the problem was that my school didn't have a library, which meant I didn't have my supply of the things I could read. Like it was, I was brought up in a very small town in Pakistan. There was this one school and it didn't have a library. So the other thing I could do is read everything I found at home. And my brother at that time was studying medicine. So I used to read those books. I used to read a lot of books of my older sisters. And in particular, I remember this magazine subscription. It was a science magazine. And that my sister subscribed to. And I used to read that a lot. And I used to especially be really interested in the articles by Stephen Hawking that were translated into Urdu, and I used to read those. And from there, I started to feel like, okay, this is something I want to do. And I used to be able to understand them, and I thought, okay, I'm going to study physics, I'm going to be an astronaut, I'm going to join NASA, and all of those things. I started studying this thing, and at that time I was like, my age would have been 8 or 9 or something like that. By the time I was 10, my family bought me a computer, and
Oh, wow.
I started yeah, they thought this child is weird, so just give her something. So I started like programming. I started to just try to get the computer. I used to compose music using programming and all kinds of things. But the thing that I remember is when I coded something, I coded the responses, but when the computer would respond to me, I would feel like, oh my God, this is great. The computer is talking to me, you know? And,
Yeah.
and then I started to program all sorts of like rules, if-then rules, to make it smarter and make it talk to me a lot more. And I think that would be a point where I thought, oh, this is something interesting as well, and maybe I have a choice between being an astronaut or going into computer science. But then I thought, well, if I know how to make computers work effectively, I could probably join a team or a project in NASA and go into NASA again, and maybe go into space. So yeah, it just started like that. I used to be, but that's how it started.
No, that's awesome. That's so amazing. I guess getting that exposure at such a young age, I guess realizing and learning. Like I used to teach girls sort of how to code and things a few years ago, and just like realizing, I guess, that a computer is just this basic thing, and you need to tell it everything, and that if you just don't tell it right, it'll spin in circles, or like, I don't know. And yeah, realizing these things that you use every day, the actual backbone of them, like they're not that smart, right? You need to tell them so much.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is a cool thing, I guess, to learn as a kid as well. Being bossy to a computer, I suppose.
And then pretending that it actually understands you, and you're like, oh, it's talking to me.
Yeah. What got you interested, I guess, in cognitive computing per se? Did you go to uni and do computer science at university and pick it up there, or because it is quite, I guess, a specialized area, right?
Yeah. I did choose to do my bachelor's in computer science. And I was quite interested in networks, computer networks, and artificial intelligence. And then I came to Australia for PhD. And at the beginning of my PhD, I was actually working in decision support systems, which is like another field of intelligent or artificial intelligence systems. And during that time, I had a personal experience that I have talked about in my TED Talk as well. And that experience made me think about why some people would behave the way they behave, and why would they be kind of unkind towards other people. Like, what makes people do that, basically. And so I started to study, like, just myself. I started to read a few books on human psychology and evolutionary biology, and try to understand what biases are, where they come from, what's the function of biases are, the functions of biases are. And through that, like, I was just reading it just to read, but then I thought, well, I'm working in decision support, and decisions are affected by biases a lot. So maybe I can bring that information that I have been just reading into what I'm working on. And that's where I started to go into cognitive models, mental models, and the way humans think, and try to capture those mental models. Our thinking is like a step-by-step process. We have our own glasses, we have our own experiences, which kind of affect everything we do. So I thought, okay, maybe what I can do is extract how humans think and kind of use them in decision support. And that's when I chose cognitive computing.
So when you, I guess, talk about those biases that we have as people, are they people who then are creating these codes and computer softwares and things? Are they bringing those biases with them as well? Is that sort of an area that you focus on, or especially in, like, I guess, decision making processes?
Yeah. So there are two parts to the answer of that question. One is that, yeah, you can actually bring the biases into algorithms by coding the way you code. So if I code one thing, it would have one bias. If you code something, it would have another bias based on our personalities. But the biases also come from data. And take artificial intelligence as something, as a child. So the way a child learns is by watching parents, like what parents do. If somebody wants their child to be a good person, they have to model to be a good person, so that the child can learn. And artificial intelligence is the same way. It gets the data from the world that we have created. It gets the data from our behaviors, all the biases that we introduce into the world, and the processes that we come up with of different things. And based on that data, artificial intelligence or the machine learning algorithms behave the way they do. So if we want these systems to play nice, we'll have to play nice with each other. What I work on is, so I was working on reducing cognitive biases from artificial intelligence systems, but this problem is very, very complex, because biases themselves are not a bad thing. They are
Yeah.
actually, they are evolutionary tool that has actually helped us to survive. If we didn't have biases, our species would have been long gone, because they tell us if something is different. As soon as we see something different, which is something that's not normal for us, our primal brain triggers something. It triggers a feeling that, you know, you need to be careful. It might be a threat. It might not be a threat, but it might be a threat. So just be careful. And after that, what we have to do as human beings is we have to give the control to our prefrontal cortex, which is our logical brain, and we have to assess. We should basically do. We should do is we should assess the situation. We should assess if the object or person that we are encountering, try to analyze the situation, interact with them, and then we update our mental models. Usually, what we do with bias is we like rely on this trigger of primal brain, which is the bias, too much, and we don't think a lot. And when we don't
Yeah.
think, we act based on the bias, and things just get out of hand sometimes, and that's not what we should do. So that, but I was trying to bring some techniques to reduce biases. But then throughout my work and the job that I started to do, I started to look into human behavior, which was full of bias, but human behavior in terms of creativity as well. Because what happens in artificial intelligence systems is these systems and these algorithms learn from the past, what happened in the past, and what they see in the environment, and that data, and based on that, they do some predictions. But they don't have creativity. They don't have that instinct and intuition that we have as human beings. So I thought it would be really interesting if the techniques that I use to identify and capture bias, what if I use them to capture creativity and instincts and new ideas and things like that, which we don't get from the data, past data. So that's what I started working on, and that is what I still work on in my startup. Um, I try to capture through different cognitive models. I try to capture the bolts of lightning, the new ideas people come up with. I basically try to capture human ingenuity. People come up with different ideas, and I try to capture them, and then the system sees, okay, where could those be useful in the future? So I hope that makes sense.
So I guess what big picture, if you sort of manage to succeed at this work, what would you, I guess, hope this AI looks like? Is it I don't know, paintings like Picasso, or is it just sort of helping us structure ideas in a more creative way?
This interesting thing is artificial intelligence actually can capture, can actually paint, and
Okay. Wow.
it can actually create music as well. But the thing is, because it doesn't have understanding, these systems don't have understanding. They don't feel or understand what the value of a certain thing is, what the value of human being or music is, and what the meaning behind a painting might be. So again, we create these things based on the past data. So it actually doesn't, the music doesn't sound really good.
Yeah.
Paintings you can take as abstract paintings. But coming back to your question, I don't know. I think I would be really happy if artificial intelligence is less biased than us, than human beings, or it's fairer than we are. But there are a lot of different factors involved in making AI ethical, because at a certain point in time during like the history of human beings, we keep thinking we are doing what the things that we are doing are right and good, but then after some time we feel like, oh, what we are doing in the past was wrong. So we, as human beings, we don't have any idea um, of our biases, and we can't identify our biases until it's too late.
Yeah.
So I don't know how we can make artificial intelligence biasless, but at least it would be good to create some algorithms which look at things in a balanced way, because everything that we look at is a spectrum. Where it's a spectrum of, could be I don't know, genders and races and the concepts of good and bad. If we teach AI to study that spectrum in a particular domain and try to balance things out, I think that would be a great achievement for AI researchers. But
Let's
myself,
hope. We'll see, or you can work hard at it. I guess your work is quite varied, but I guess what does a typical day look like for you, or is there something that you're really enjoying working on at the moment in this space?
Okay. What I'm working on these days that I'm really excited about is my individualized education platform. I've always thought that education system could be better, and what happens is, again, the biases come into play, and we think, like, at least in Pakistan, where I was growing up, people thought that everybody who is working, everybody who's good in science is a good student, and students who are inclined towards arts are not very good students. But that it shouldn't be the case. Everybody should be able to choose the path based on their skills and talents and personality type and all of those things. So one of the things that I'm working on right now, using cognitive computing, is an individualized platform. And the idea is that a user or a student who uses this platform, the platform actually can identify their personality, their academic talents, and their skills, vocational skills, and the things basically they are good at. And based on that, it could give them recommendations about their future dreams and aspirations, and show them the roadmap, that kind of thing. And I think it would be really important, as Bradley in the first interview said, that we didn't think he would be able to pass certain subjects, and that tends to happen because of a lot of different reasons. One of which would be lack of resources or lack of availability of resources. So I think if we bring this kind of app or a platform that anybody could use anywhere in the world, which connects them with resources and mentors and tells them who they are and what they could do, what could be the possibilities for them, I think that would be a big step in bringing basically every student along.
Is it going to be one of those things, I guess, as you're talking about before, that you train AI on ideas of the past? And if we do kind of, I guess, exist in this society that does believe that if you study science, you're good, and if you and arts is bad, will you sort of have to review those, I guess, concepts around, I guess, education subjects and ideas for this program as well?
What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to keep it as much away from society's biases as possible. What I'm trying to do is creating an intuitive interface between the cognitive models and the student, so that they can talk to the system and their personality is understood by the system. And their strengths in terms of different subjects like mathematics or chemistry or anything that they've been studying, and any kind of skills that they have, and bringing all those things together just build a profile of the student. And one of the components of the system also is using gamification to talk to student about their future aspirations and dreams. And like, for example, I wanted to be an astronaut or something like that.
Yeah.
And understanding what they see, because what happens is when we are young, we think outside the box. But as we go through the education system, we start to come back to the box and start to think a certain way that we are taught to think like. And I think that's not good, because human beings are different and they should be allowed to think different. So the idea of asking these students in terms of what they want to do in the future, and then integrating those ideas with their strengths, I think it would be student focused, not society focused or school focused or teacher focused or different educational method focused. It will be it has to be focused on students, who they are, what they want to do, and what their passions are, and just go from that direction instead of bringing in the biases of the society.
Yes, that sounds like an amazing mission, and I wish you luck.
Thank you. I really need a lot of luck. Yes.
I have two questions left. One is, what is, I guess, the most favorite thing that you've discovered or created?
I think that the moment when I realized that bias isn't a bad thing and it's actually very helpful, I think that moment was great for me. That's something I just discovered from the material. That's not something that I did myself. But in my PhD, when I was working on mitigating or reducing biases from decision support system, the results, when I got the results, and they actually showed me that the bias was decreased because of my method of bringing in different kinds of experiences and doing the processing on them and balancing it out. I think that was a really great moment for me. I was like, oh, it can be done. It still is subjective. It can be subjective. It still has a few things to be tweaked, but at least I was able to do it.
Nice.
Yeah, that was.
And now just do it a million more times, and we'll see where we get. So the aim of Shirty Science is that, I guess, we create science T-shirts by getting creatives and scientists to work together and come up with a design. And that design aim is to kind of spark conversation about research. So when someone's walking down the street and they get stopped and they're like, "That's a cool shirt," that person responds and it's like, "Yeah, it's about this Tas and she does research on blah." Thinking about that process, is there an element, I guess, of what you work on that you would want people to be talking about? What kind of takeaway message would you like about your research and the shirt design that hopefully we will create?
I guess I would like to talk about something that is very much connected to my research, but it's something that we have to think about as society as well, because I mean, these days artificial intelligence experts and people who are working on biases, they could be great psychologists because they study psychology and all types of theories and all types of things very deeply. And I think society needs to understand one thing, that in a better world, they need to understand what bias is. It is an evolutionary tool, and in a better world, when you get this trigger from your primal brain about something or someone being different, you would immediately engage your logical brain, your prefrontal cortex, to to kind of assess the situation and interact with that person or that object, and analyze it in so that you can reduce bias, basically. And as I said, we have two parts of the brain. So if we don't dwell too much on the biases and actually think and assess and analyze, I think we would be creating a better world instead of a biased world. The other thing, I think, in terms of artificial intelligence, some people are really scared of what artificial intelligence can do, which I think, and a lot of people think artificial intelligence is going to be deliberately trying to harm us, but it can't, because it doesn't understand the concept of human beings. But I think it's important for people to understand that artificial intelligence algorithms are like a child, and they learn from us. They learn from our societies and our behavioral patterns. If you want these systems to be fair and less biased, we'll have to be less biased and fair in our dealings as well. So I think
I think that's a nice message, the idea of sort of just like stopping and slowing down a little bit, and letting your first perception of something and then assessing it in its greater kind of environment is such a great message for so many elements of life as well, right?
I hope we get some wonderful designs on that as well. If we
yes.
Get the message out.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us tonight, Tas. Sorry for all the technical difficulties. These things happen, right? We don't have control all the time.
Yes. Technology, right?
Yeah, who would, what even? But yeah, thank you. This video will be uploaded onto Instagram TV and also to Shirty Science YouTube. And now it's out to the world to create a design, and we'll get them back and I'll share them with you, Tas, and we'll pick our favorite. If you have any other questions for Tas, just DM Shirty Science or send me an email and I'll pass the questions on. But I think we had a really interesting chat about and learn a bit more about what artificial intelligence is, and cognitive biases and ways. I definitely learned something new, that I guess that biases are just an innate part of what we do and that we wouldn't be here without them. But yes, thank you so much for joining me on a rainy, miserable Friday night. Stay warm this weekend. And hope.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Bye.
Bye.